Okay, well, hello. I am so excited to be hosting or doing this call right now. I know we've been talking about it for a really long time. I think Alice, we've been talking about it for months, if not years, like, haven't we? About
Yeah.
doing a call on highly sensitive, spirited HSP children. So that's not just highly sensitive children, but extremely highly sensitive children who are also spirited. And that is a whole other experience. Like I had one HSP child out of three who was already, definitely there were unique challenges with her, still are actually, even though she's 25. And but with Alice, who I've known for years, we've been working together for years. There's a lot of things that she experiences with her daughter that like is so far beyond anything that I experienced. And I've recognized that with a number of the moms that I work with who sometimes have one of those children who I call the angel children because so I have an article on this. I'll link it in the show notes, but like I have this little theory that for most children, let's say we need to have our parenting be about 80% on point for things to flow relatively well. So for me, that's how I was with two of my children. And then you have like highly sensitive children, or maybe like some children who are neurodivergent, or have some extra challenges who require us to be maybe 92% on point for things to flow well with them. And then there are the really challenging children, for example, who have come to call highly sensitive, spirited HSPs, which Alice, Arij, and Sabina each have one of them. So that's why they're here, and who really require you to be, I don't know, 99% on point or something like that. Like any tiny little thing that's off, they pick up on it and they react to it. There's like no margin of errors with those children, which is, on the one hand, really challenging and not an easy thing to live with. But on the other hand, as Arij, you said at some point so beautifully in a clean parenting module, like you said something about if Amina hadn't been this challenging, it wouldn't have, I mean, the way you put it was so beautiful, but that it wouldn't have forced you to be doing all this work because you could have, yeah, gotten around with parenting in a more mainstream way, or it wouldn't have required you to work on every tiny little thing.
Mhm. And that I wouldn't have found you and found this awesome, um, like I wouldn't have started this healing journey with you and then found this awesome tribe. And so I finally understood what you had been saying in your article. Like she is my angel in that way. And I often have to course correct because it's like, um, instead of wondering, what's going on with her or what's wrong with her, it's like, okay, wait a minute, what's actually wrong with me? So I have to find the right question.
Yeah, I love that.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's about asking the right question. Yeah. And like I often say, so for me in my work, which like or the first big type of work that I support moms, it's usually I work with women, so moms in doing is my clean parenting program. And the first two-thirds of it, it's really working on the parenting to find that place of being a clear leader, of really like knowing how to be on the same team, knowing what their needs are, meeting their needs at the core, etc. And but then once that's established, usually if the child is acting out something, it's usually a reflection of something that's going on in the mom. So yes, I mean, sometimes it's their own needs not being met that they need attended to, but so often, I mean, Alice, I think we've had dozens, if not hundreds of conversations where you're like, what's going on? What should I be doing different? What's going on with Ottilie? And then at some point you're like, oh,
Mm.
it's not what's
Hindsight.
going on with her, it's what's going on with me. And as soon as I address that, her behavior changes instantaneously.
Yeah. And at the beginning, there was always a lot of resistance. There was always a lot of me saying, it can't all be my fault. It can't all be me. But generally, it's not that it was my fault. It was just that she was here to show me where I needed to, you know, focus and heal and work what I needed to work through. Yeah.
I wonder if you can think of some examples of that.
Leave it with me and I'll think of it now.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking that maybe we can like keep chatting and yeah, you
Yeah.
can jump in with some examples.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I've been wanting to do this conversation with Alice for a long time because I feel like she's way more of an expert in it than I am because because I haven't experienced that personally. And she's incredibly wise and an incredible mother. And then, starting to work with Arij, and I kept being like, you need to talk with Alice. Like, Alice is the one who could really help you with this. So I was just very interested in connecting them and then, connecting more with Sabina recently and, realizing, oh, Lena's like that too. Interestingly, they're all girls. But so I thought it would be great to have this conversation all together. So I'm not sure where to take it from here. I don't know if go ahead, Alice.
I'm still in kind of newborn brain and things go really quickly. So before it goes, an example is an example of when I was kind of staring at Ottilie. I mean, not literally, but you know, trying to work out like, what do I do? What's going on? This isn't working, and it felt really crunchy and kind of our whole sort of life felt turbulent and crunchy. And by crunchy, I don't mean kind of hippie. I mean like, you know, like things are like jolting,
jerky.
Yeah. And I would sort of suddenly be like, what do I do? Like, what am I doing wrong with her? What do I? And it was around relationship, like her relationship with my husband, so her dad. And so I would focus time and time again. I focused on what do I do? You know, I'll message Eliane and say, this is happening, and we'll kind of talk about it. And it will finally dawn on me. Actually, no, quite often what happened in the beginning was that, so using an example of her, like, not wanting to be close with her dad or something, or not wanting to spend time with him. So I would really sort of like work on talking to her about it and helping her express her feelings about it and helping, you know, holding her and her emotion about being left with him or whatever it was. And then also trying to help my husband to do the same with her. But then, you know, and then maybe fast forward a couple of weeks, I might have a one-to-one trauma somatic healing session with Eliane, or at the time I was working with Dana as well. And, you know, the session would suddenly, out of nowhere, be focused on my relationship with my husband. And then at the end, I'd be like, oh, that's why she's been struggling with him. Okay, got it. And then, you know, and I would literally write it in my diary.
Because you were struggling with him. It's like she was mirroring your struggle with your husband.
Yeah, exactly. And so actually, and I would write it in my diary because it kept happening, like maybe every 4 months or so, there would be like this new thing, but I always forgot. And then I would have like work through something in a session and then get that whole like moment again and think, okay, what I really needed to do was, I mean, it was fine because the behavior that she was expressing helped me to then need to do a session on the thing, and then work through my stuff on the thing, whatever the thing is. In this instance, it was relationship with my husband. And then, so it was kind of perfect how it happened. But I think I've slightly got a bit quicker now at thinking, okay, is there like, I don't really need to necessarily look at her. Obviously, I still need to like support her and all her emotion around it and things, but also I need to look in the mirror and see like my own mirror, because she is my mirror, and you know, she signals where I need to look. So yeah, it's got a bit quicker, mostly. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're less resistant to it. Because I think one of the challenges in it, and I mean, it can be hard to be like, it's all on me. You know, like whenever there's some kind of challenge, whenever they're struggling, whenever they're acting out, to have
Yeah.
it be that, I don't know, 90% of the time, it's like, okay, you need to look at yourself and you need to do inner work.
Yeah.
And it is a lot. Like, it is a lot on your shoulders. I mean, I think that for some people, part of the journey to having like harmony with those children can be that grieving of how challenging those children are and how much they demand of you.
Yeah.
Because it is a lot. And yeah, you need to have not everybody has the interest. I mean, I think at least like the four of us, at least we have this interest in doing inner work. So at least we have that going for us. But not everybody is interested in doing this deep digging, roto-rooting, healing work. And then, yeah, it is a lot of responsibilities, especially for moms who have trauma, for moms who have challenging lives. You know, some people have like tough circumstances where they're single moms or have, tough relationship issues, money issues, whatever, like things that have them living or like very overwhelming lives that have them living at the edge of their window of tolerance or sometimes outside of it. So it's a lot. So, so yeah, I think it's really important to like admit and work through those feelings.
Yeah.
And then to find some really skilled help, especially at first. So like, I know Alice, at first we used to do, I mean, at times we were doing more than one session a week. Like we had periods where you were doing multiple sessions a week, and now you do one, every 3 months or something. You know, it's like through doing it, you've kind of, well, one, you've healed enough that you have a lot more access, I think, to your like ability to figure things out on your own, and like your window of tolerance is like you're just in a much better place.
Yeah, I'm kind of in more of a adult place more of the time, you know, instead of a wounded child, always terrified.
Right.
Yeah. And actually, just again, before I forget, one thing, I'm sure it'll come up, but one thing, when you said, you know, we need to be kind of 99% of the time getting it spot on with children like Ottilie, who's my older daughter, not this one, by the way. One so far is pretty easy. Yeah. So the thing that I've really had to dig into and understand is that it seems to be authenticity for her. I'm not sure if that's across the board or whether it's just her specific.
I think it is.
Labor.
I literally had made a note to talk about that.
Cool. Okay. So we'll come out.
No, I mean, no, go ahead. I mean, that's literally the only note I have. So
yeah, well, it just made me think, yeah, I don't know. I think it came up when I was I can't remember exactly when it sprung to mind when we were talking or when I was listening to you, but it's just so obvious with her now that, well, I think, that's why it was. So quite often I'll again be thinking, okay, what's going on with her? You know, and we need to find a new way around whatever we're doing, or we need to, I don't know, something's going on and I need to find an answer for it. And 9 times out of 10, if I check myself and say, okay, am I being authentic in this situation, or am I being authentic in this I don't know, like limit that I've set, or am I being authentic in how I want to live? Like, you know, am I feeling like I'm being authentic for myself in my life?
Yeah.
9 times out of 10.
Like for example, like pressuring yourself to be like, okay, we need to be out of the house by a certain time and we need to have these activities. And if they're not feeling right for you and you're doing them out of should, she would
Yes,
fight you and the whole thing would be really like choppy and
exactly. Yeah. Thank you for being so specific. I find it hard to think of specifics. I was just thinking about today, though, that something that felt really beautiful today was I felt really tired, and we generally have a very new kind of limit around watching TV, which has only developed because I've got to a place where I authentically feel able to cope with her without just having the TV on. So I'm not trying, you know, up until this moment in my journey, I needed to have TV use to kind of help. And then there was suddenly this moment where I remember I messaged you and I said, I feel so much clarity about the fact that I want to just have TV for 1 hour over the weekend and that's it. And it was so amazing because so she was watching a lot of TV when I was going through sort of the depths of the anxiety I was going through. And so she's watched a lot of TV in her life. And you know, it's something when we would get into the house, she would always say, can I watch TV now? And I remember that day, it was when I was driving home with her. And I was like, oh, amazing. Okay, this is what we need to do. This is what needs to happen, because for a number of reasons, I just felt it wasn't suiting me. It wasn't authentic for me anymore. Like I was using her watching TV as a way for me to zone out and not be present in our life. You know, it was like oh, thank goodness, now I can just kind of zone off on my phone and not connect to her again for the whole evening. It was becoming it was just a way of me, not being present. And I find
and if I may say, is so it like one of your struggles has been to be an adult versus to resort back to a more like childish.
yeah,
So that's what she was, I think that's what was happening at that point, is you were
yeah,
like, okay, for me to really like step up into myself to be that adult, this is what needs to happen. Otherwise it's too easy to revert back.
exactly.
Right.
So it was yeah, it's more like a tool for me so that I can keep myself in check. Sorry. Yeah, but so what was interesting is if I had said it to her any other time, like there's no TV today, she would have had such a huge meltdown and been really stressed out about it, and it would have been really like fireworks and screaming and agony and and she didn't even, sorry, stuff going on, baby. She didn't even ask to watch telly that day for the first time ever when we got in. She didn't. It's like she knew energetically that it was okay and it wasn't happening because it was so authentic in myself. I felt so strong and okay about it, and it wasn't coming from a place of which I've had a lot, a place of I shouldn't let my child watch TV. I'm a bad mum because I use the TV. You know, proper connected mums don't use the TV. I had that kind of going on in my head, and it just but that was coming from some kind of should place where I was judging myself. And yeah, and then the next day she said, can I watch some TV? And I said, actually, you know, I've decided that our family, anyway, I sort of talked it through with her, and she was like, oh, I'll miss it, but okay, and just walked off. And I was like, what?
What just happened?
You know, and I said it to my mum, or maybe not my mum, a friend, I can't remember, and they said, oh, so don't you feel a bit annoyed that you didn't do it sooner? And I was like, no, because she wouldn't have accepted it sooner, because it was only me being really authentic with it that almost like gave her a sense of safety with it, I think. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but I hope it made sense.
No, I think it's beautiful. It really illustrates how it is, like how much they are like your barometers. I mean, in general, children are with their mom, but like, but the thing about your daughters is there's really no margin of error.
Mhm.
No pressure.
And I was telling Evian also that just a few days ago, I'm also learning, like every time I'll tell her, yeah, I talk to Evian about, she's like, it's the same thing, you know, she'll tell me an example of, like for sure, with Alice, Alice has learned to see that what Audie is acting up, it's mirroring something she's feeling. So I've been trying to keep an eye out for that. And then a few days ago, something happened that just made me realize it, like to really open my eyes to it and feel it and see how true this is. And I woke up like with a massive to-do list, and I was like so pumped to do my day. And Amina was just not having it. She wasn't having it. And that day I was like, I'm gonna give up my day and just be with her and rest. And I ended up resting the whole day and napping with her, which I didn't think I would. And she rarely sits still. Like she's been a baby who, like, even from birth, I'd have to put her in the sling, walk with her, bounce her on the ball. Otherwise, she would cry. She wasn't happy unless she was in motion. And she's still kind of like that, but she just lay down with me that day in bed, not moving, like, come, mama, come in bed. And like we sat there in bed, and I just stayed there resting. And then, you know, at the end, I'm like, you're so right. Like, this is it. It's just, she knows exactly what I needed. And she, you know, like Sabine, you said they won't, you said something, I even wrote it down because I was like, it's so beautiful. They won't settle for anything that's less than true love. So she just kind of like took me by the hand and was like, this is what you need to be doing. But it's still like,
And I think like that's I was just gonna say because like that's what so all four of us are HSPs. So we have that. But so part of it is we feel what's true, right? Like you can feel if something's true. You can feel if somebody's authentic. If they're not, we can feel it in our body, like it feels off. So yeah, it is. So they're even more attuned to just feeling what's true. And yeah, then they demand it. And that's maybe the difference between them and non highly sensitive spirited HSPs is if they feel it and you don't act on it, they will have a major fit and they will act out until you do it because yeah, they have no tolerance for on truth, on connection, on like inauthenticity.
right? It's such a big, well, it's the main thing now. I'm seeing the authenticity of how it has to be, like, that it has to be ripe, it has to be right for the change to happen, or for something to happen, um like the night weaning, you know, I felt ready for it to happen, so it went way smoother than I thought it would go. um you know, with Alice, when she was ready to stop with the TV, it was like, okay, it went smooth. um I can't remember specific examples from my life, but I do know that very often when I'm ready for something and it feels right, it's so smooth and so easy and there's no friction.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about that example that you just named because if I remember correctly, like that day you woke up, you felt like you had a lot of energy. You felt
Mm,
ready to tackle your to-do list. And didn't you say you napped for like 4 hours or something?
that's the thing. I don't have a good memory, so I'm trying to figure out if it was that day or
Yeah,
another
that's
day.
my memory that you were like, I didn't think I was tired, but Amina did because she made me lay down and rest. And then it turns out that I really needed it.
I remember I had slept like 14 hours in a 24-hour period that time.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's the thing. It's like they can feel what's needed. They can feel what's true. They can feel what's right.
Hmm.
And anything that feels off, they can't handle it.
But it,
then
but
it's just up to the mom to do the detective work of being like, okay, what's going on? What
yeah.
is she signaling? What is she indicating? What needs to be addressed here? What's off track?
Because it's not necessarily obvious, like it can be like
Right.
a normal meltdown, like, and like, it could be you've cut my toast in the wrong shape, and underneath I'm like, okay, so what's actually going on here? But also trying not to invalidate the fact that the toast is in the wrong shape, sort of it can be quite tricky to kind of to work out. And I think that's where I just always need to go inwards and be like, okay, well, what in our life isn't feeling authentic at the moment? Yeah.
And I do want to, I mean, I do want to reiterate that this is true when the parenting is on point. So I would say, like, I say this for people who have done my program or who I know, enough that I know their parenting is well attuned. They are on the same team. They do have good leadership skills. Because if any of that is off, then, I mean, again, I guess they're reflecting something in you, but it's like your lack of parenting skill or lack of attunement in the parenting. But yeah, if the parenting's attuned, I mean, yes, they might get upset because the toast is, cut in the wrong shape. And some of that can also be, I want to say, normal in terms of, like, as highly sensitive people, we feel a lot. So we need to have an outlet for our emotions. So for me, I often say that feel like I need to cry every day. It's not a sign that there's anything wrong. In fact, oftentimes when I'm in good phases where I'm really productive, really engaged, not very emotional, it's like I don't do that regular crying or regular sessions. And then it ends up backfiring because I have this backlog. So for me to really do well, I do need to process very regularly. So it doesn't mean that yeah, if you're perfectly attuned and if you like always know right away what your child is mirroring, that they're not going to cry or have meltdowns. No, it's very likely that, yeah, those highly sensitive children do need to have regular meltdowns. Literally, like it's hygiene for like the nervous system, for the emotional system, for the soul to have those regular, yeah,
Yeah.
like grieving, processing moments.
Otti said to Farmer, my husband, last night, she was feeling a lot about not sleeping in the same room as me while now that Will is here. And she said at the height of her, really crying and yeah, just trying to kind of anyway, Farmer was meeting her where he could, and then I just heard through the door, but Daddy, I have a much smaller nervous system than you, and I need a big nervous system to help me. And I was just like, oh my God, yeah, you do. And he came in and said, what do I say to that? And I was like, go back and say, yes, I'm your big nervous system. I'll regulate with you. And, because it's not true that, yeah, like even, and I'd say probably at the moment, we're nowhere near hitting 90% attunement. And I think that's a whole nother discussion. Well, maybe not, but of how do you meet a first child and well, how do you meet a child like that when there's also a sibling? That's really, really tricky. But yeah, but even in the times where it was just her and me most of the time, day to day, and I was probably meeting her needs like pretty well, there would still need to be regular, like you said, like hygiene, sort of, like she needed that co-regulation. I mean, I think every child does, but them to the extreme possibly, yeah. But it was cool to
Yeah,
hear her say that.
it's amazing. I mean, that awareness,
Yeah,
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 it's really incredible. Um, yeah, I think so. For me, like one of the reasons that I think of those children as angels is that, well, I'm sure you all know, but for me, I never really intended on being a parenting coach. Like what I really wanted to do was to support women in healing and like clearing their blocks to be living from a whole place. So I kind of created the Clean Parenting program as a way to educate moms about the importance of honoring their own needs and doing their own healing work so that I could get to do this work with them. But yeah, life definitely decided that I was meant to be primarily a parenting coach. Well, I suppose both, um but yeah, so those children who are really like high mirrors of us, and in particular those highly sensitive spirited HSPs, they can really feel like where the wounds are in the moms, the needs that are not met, where the nervous system is agitated, where there's anxiety, all of that. So oftentimes they will be, and I think, Alice, that I think that's part of it with Ottilie, is when she was born, like you had so much anxiety and so much trauma from your whole life that like she reflected all of that, and like she forced you to do so much of your healing work. But it's really beautiful because you wouldn't be where you are now if she hadn't really forced you to do it, because she was reflecting everything. And I think maybe to a certain degree she still is. Like, I'll be curious to see where you'll both be 5 years from now as you continue on this journey of meeting your needs and creating a life that is really attuned to you, and learning to trust yourself and learning to just do the things that feel right to you, and letting go of the shoulds and continuing to heal your own nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, I am just sort of, this is really helpful. So I'm sort of reflecting on having just, talked about authenticity. It's taken me a few weeks to realize that we've been demanding from her something that's just not authentic. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's quite authenticity, but yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is I'm still learning from her regularly. And yeah, and
Well, having unrealistic expectations, I think, of her,
sorry.
given that, like, you've been having unrealistic expectations of her, given all you're going through with, like, they're in this weird, like, move things where they keep having to move and having the new baby and the holidays.
Yeah. I just think, sorry, there's a lot of noise. Did you hear that?
Yeah, we hear it, but it's not very loud, so it's not like it's distracting.
Cool. Yeah, like I just basically I feel that this week I've realized that that she's once again brought me back. She's been struggling so much with going to bed and having bedtime, and it's like she's sort of eventually I listened enough to realize, to sort of question, why are we trying for a bedtime? Like, where's that come from suddenly? It's not that sudden, it's like crept up on us, but why has that happened? Because I remember writing in the Clean Parenting program, is it like an intention or something for the first module, or
Yeah.
sort of how do you want your life to be, or how do you imagine life to be? I remember writing something about, in the evenings we're all together as a family and we're all doing kind of our own thing, but also coming together, and it's all very relaxed and flowy, and we have candles lit, and it's just very relaxed and calming, and we're maybe playing games together, or we're doing our own little interests, like maybe I've learned to play the guitar. It was all very like, oh, this is my dream. And then the other day I've been like, come on, we need to get out of bed because then I can have a break and then I can have some time off. And then suddenly, but more and more she was fighting back on it, and then eventually I listened and I thought, hey, what if she doesn't go to bed early? What if we create this thing that I thought of, how long ago was it? 3 years ago, and actually work towards spending evenings together. And with me being authentic and saying, you know, yeah, if you want to stay down with us, that's totally fine. But I'm going to go and have a bath, and I want it to be quiet in the bathroom. So you can come and be in the bathroom, but I want it to be quiet. And you know, and then she can choose that. I feel like I'm slightly going off topic, but I think what I'm trying to say is she's still kind of teaching me, like bringing me back, like almost like realigning me constantly. But yeah, but this time it's taken quite a long time for me to listen. I think because, you know, we've had other things going on, like you.
Yeah.
But it's cool because, you know, and that particular situation for us works because she's not at school and we don't have any things we have to get to in the morning. So, you know, she slept in this morning until 10 to 10. So I know that she's getting enough sleep. And she gets to hang out with her dad, which she doesn't normally because he's at work until her bedtime, you know, and then yeah. So again, she's like, you know, how did she read my intention 3 years ago and is sort of trying to, it's like, how did you know that? How did you bring me back to that? That's so incredible. Yeah, so I'm
But it's all
regularly,
energetic, right? It's
yeah.
like you were working towards something. Well, that wasn't working, basically. Like
Mm.
you were working towards something that wasn't working, and that's not really aligned with who
Yeah,
you really are, what's
yeah.
really authentic as a way
Yeah.
of living for you.
Yeah, because I was really struggling every night. I was like, right, I've got to get her up at 6:30. Otherwise, she has to have a long winding down period and she has to have a bath and it was just all getting really like, I have to do all these things in order for this to happen. So that, and I kind of lost my focus of, but why am I doing that? And it's totally fine if that works for other people, but it's not, it was like, yeah, it was just coming from a should place, you know,
Yeah. Which,
and I could,
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like that's the thing too for so many other parents that I work with, is that it often happens when they're living by shoulds, when they're following other people's ideas, when they're trying to parent the way they think they should.
yeah,
And this is where, to me, like those children are such amazing guides because they will force you to live authentically. They will force you to let go of those shoulds and to let go of,
yeah,
yeah, any way of living that is not for your highest good or that's not like what you're meant to be living.
yeah.
So it's amazing, but it's not easy. And I think it can be really helpful, possibly essential to have support in it because it can be so challenging. And I think the other thing I want to say about it is that I think it's probably for a lot of people, probably normal for the first few years to be hard, especially if you've not been raised in a way where you were encouraged to follow your own inner guidance, to do what was right, like encouraged to live in an authentic way as opposed to a should way. Then like there's so much work to be done for those of us who have been like trained to live in this way, conditioned to live in this way, to go from that to living in a way that's authentic. And especially if we're highly sensitive, which it seems, well, I don't know, I guess I don't have a good sense of that because I think my work does draw highly sensitive moms. So yeah, for me, it seems like a lot of the highly sensitive children also have highly sensitive moms.
Yeah.
So when that's the case, then oftentimes, also because we're highly sensitive, we have more trauma because it's very traumatic to live as a highly sensitive person in our society and being parented in a mainstream way. So anyway, because of all of that, I think it can be pretty normal that the first few years or the first several years are pretty challenging because it can take time to do our own inner work and to get to this place of living in an authentic way, of letting go of the shoulds, trusting ourselves. Like those are things that are hard work and that take time and a hell of a commitment to do it. So yeah, so you're
And
not
it's,
doing anything wrong if you still have a very challenging child by the time they're 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Like it's not easy work.
and it's scary, you know. Well, for me, it was very scary because a lot of my trauma is around I have to do what I'm told and I have to do what authority tells me. And, you know, the majority of
Otherwise, I'm gonna die. Like that's oftentimes the underlying, like that's what's gonna happen if you don't.
yeah, that's my fear. I mean, I know it's not actually going to happen, but it, you know, that's what it has
Right.
and can feel like. And so it is really scary. And, you know, especially so for example, around education, we haven't sent Otti to school, and that's been a weirdly quite a non-thing for me in that whole that's what I should be doing scenario. But what is tricky is like today, oh, that's why I started talking about telly, because today I was really tired and I got back from an appointment and Otti had been playing with someone all morning who'd been looking after her. She was quite tired. I had a phone call and she said, can I watch some telly? And so we don't normally watch telly during the week. And I said, hey, why don't we put on Planet Earth, like David Attenborough kind of nature program thing? And because she's really loving watching it when we were with my parents over Christmas. And she was like, yeah, that'd be great. And then I finished my phone call and we basically ended up watching probably about 2.5 hours of it together, just both really relaxing. I was cluster feeding Willa, who was cluster feeding, and we were just I just reflected on how attuned this felt to both of us in that moment and how beautiful it was, that even though we have a general kind of, I don't like, it's so hard, it's so nuanced, but there's this way of being. It's not like we can't ever watch telly during the week, but it's sort of this, if it's coming from this authentic place that's meeting a need, then it's accepted by both of us. And if I, you know, but if she sort of just says, can I watch telly because for some other reason, and I say no, it's kind of okay, because that's also a thing. I don't know, it's a really
Yeah.
tricky thing
Well,
to
and it's all
but
about just really attuning to yourself and identifying what's true
yeah,
and having the courage to follow that
yeah,
inner guidance, which
yeah,
is, you know, what I always talk about. Like that's why, yeah, there's no one right thing to do. And that's why I say the only like bad word in the English language is should,
yeah,
because it's as soon as you're living out of a belief or like trying to follow a rule, like it's never 100% true that things should be a certain way, and those children will feel it if it's off.
yeah. And yeah, so with the education thing, you know, I get these worries of, hold on, she's meant to be in school and I'm sitting here watching telly with her for 2 hours. Like, how can that be my life and that be okay? But I know that it's coming. I know, so I have there's becoming a clearer distinction of, okay, so that's just a judgmental voice, and that's coming from fear versus a sort of authentic, being an adult, knowing what we both need kind of voice. And it's helping me kind of, yeah, all these parenting decisions are helping me work out who I am. Like, you know, where am I coming from a judgmental voice, and where is that a part of me that okay, you're there for a reason, but I don't need you to run my life anymore. And you know, it's helping me work those things out too. And I kind of wanted to mention human design because earlier we were chatting, Eliane, and saying how incredible it is to work out how to work out what your authentic voice is. But I've found that helpful, but I don't know enough about it really.
Yeah. Well,
Just to
there's
know.
something in human design that's about like what our authority is, which is how we make decisions. And like I've found understanding that about ourselves. So like Alice's is sacral authority, which means you just know in the moment, right? Or
If
yeah, it's
something's
like instinct, right?
yeah. Yeah, like if something's if I don't get an immediate yes or no, then it's not a decision that I need to make right now. I have to kind of wait until I get a full body like yes now, and then I know it's a yes.
Yeah.
As opposed to kind of thinking, oh, well, I probably should because Eliane told me that it's what, you know, that it might be a good thing to do. And I really respect her. So I want to do the thing that she suggested because she's, you know, an expert in this area. So I should do it. as opposed to, it was something, I can't remember what it was now, something you said to me earlier, and I was like, it's not a yes right now, but it's really cool to know that that's an option, and it might become a yes. Yeah. Whereas in the past, I would have been like, okay, I'll do it right away. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you talked about like the two sides of like the fear and the, you know, authentic self or the adult self, because like on a good day, I would feel, you know, I mean, I would make such a good big sister. Like I want to have another kid now. Like I'm ready. And her drive, like she has such an awesome drive. She's so awesome. She's just like she'll jump up and do something. She wants to be a part of everything. And then sometimes the fear takes over, and I'm like, well, is the intensity gonna get even more so? You know, like the older she's gonna get, is intensity gonna grow? And then I can't help but think it's like the more we're attuned, like it's not gonna, I just have to accept that it's not gonna be easy. It's always gonna be intense. And I have to stay attuned, and she will keep changing. She'll keep changing, and I have to keep reattuning and understanding, and like again, not expecting it to be um you know, not having expectations as I did the first time around, where I thought my life as a mother would be, I don't know what I expected, but not what I have right now. And I think, so yeah, that's it. So I'm always torn between like the fear of, is she going to get more intense, and what is it all going to mean, and how am I going to handle it, and um, can I handle it? And then the other side going, of course, she's your angel. Like that's the beauty, and she's going to show me more of where I need to grow. But it's always that kind of pull between the two, where I have to keep finding um, the right uh, keep accepting what comes up, and have the courage to go through whatever I need to go through.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the thing too that's just coming is like you you're forced to be present all the time. Like
Yeah.
there's no just like coasting on automatic pilot. It's like so they'll keep reminding you like wake up. Like like show up, connect to yourself, be present, which is amazing. That's what like so many spiritual practices are all about, that, right? Being present.
Right.
So they literally are your spiritual teacher of being what was it? Eckhart Tolle. I think he's got this little bell thing.
I don't
Or
remember.
what was it? I think there was that book that you meant. Oh no, there was that book that you mentioned that actually was something different from I don't know how to pronounce his name. Huxley, like Aldous
Adolf
Huxley.
Huxley?
Yeah, there's
Oh,
that book.
Island? The book
Yeah,
Island?
Island. So in it, there's this thing where they have these birds in the. I mean, it's been so many years since I read it, but there's these birds in the jungle that I don't know if they make a sound or they literally say like, "Be present, be present, be present," and it's like that's what those children do. Like, be present, be present, be present. If you just kind of casually say something to them, it's not going to work. Like, you need to connect in, look at them, attune to them, attune to the situation, and respond from that place. And I think if you do, then things are okay.
Mhm.
But if you do less than that, they'll likely have a reaction.
Yeah, just a little less than that, and they'll have a reaction. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, before I was a mom, I know I was living on autopilot, like totally in I feel like I was asleep and then I woke up. So the wake up has been an interesting journey with her along.
Yeah, it's not an easy waking up with those children.
Mhm.
But I
Being
can,
oh, good.
yeah, I was just gonna say what I've been realizing, or like what is going on for my daughter and me, is like she turned 5 now, and I mean, I'm growing in holding the capacity to understand what is like going on in our dynamic with her emotions, with mine. And I really think, I mean, I now think that I have understood that a lot of what I did was like trying to prevent her from having strong reactions, which she has when she's not like, yeah, in very different scenarios. She has like really, really strong reactions. And what I recently learned is like when I'm fully present, when I can manage to be that and not be afraid of her, like being angry now because she cannot find pants or socks that she can wear to leave the house. So it's like, okay, she would have that tantrum, she would like scream and all that kind of stuff. If I manage to kind of accept that and like not be afraid of her like intensity, I noticed how quick it would also leave her, you know? And then she would be
Uh-huh.
like, okay, I will just take these, take them on and leave the house. And then it's so quick all of a sudden, right? So I think what I'm trying to say is like they are growing and they are so, I think what the gift is of being so spirited and highly sensitive as well is like they know what they want. So I think that's a huge gift. So when they learn, or we learn to be with that, um yeah, I think it's a huge gift to also, yeah, experience that, or be with them with their clarity and with their authenticity, as you said. So
Yeah.
for me, the learning in these last weeks and months has been like how much I actually tried to keep her in her window of tolerance. So I sometimes invalidated the actual reaction she had. You know, let's keep the example of the socks. Like I was like, oh, now she's tired and she's not finding socks because she's so tired. When I was able to, you know, let that thought go and was like, oh my god, it's hard to find socks today, right? And just be with it. I didn't even, sometimes I don't even need to say anything, but just be okay with, okay, now it's hard to find socks. It's really hard. Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. But for me, it was realizing I invalidated like the very emotion she has at the very moment, because I was so much looking for the big picture. What is going on in our lives? What am I doing wrong in the sense of like, or what can I do better in sense? But like, yeah, really being present. That was like my takeaway from these last months. So I keep learning, and I have the feeling, actually, I don't know, but I don't know about you, but I have the feeling the older she gets, the, I don't know, the easier it gets. I mean, at least for me and for now. So I
Yeah.
don't know what I will say.
Well,
And
but I
sometimes,
mean, to me,
yeah.
what you just talked about is so important. I'm so glad you brought it up because, yeah, just the normalizing the
Mm.
intense emotions and
Yeah.
not being scared of it.
Yeah.
Like I've often wondered why people experience so much healing and healing sessions with me. Like it baffles me that people keep paying me what they pay me to do healing sessions when oftentimes I feel like I don't do anything. I just sit here and listen and be with them. But I've come to believe that part of it and well, you've all done sessions with me, so maybe you can speak to that, but is nothing scares me. I can handle anything. Bring me your darkest thoughts, your darkest emotions, your most intense, horrendous pain, and it doesn't faze me at all. And I'm like, here, bring it on. I can handle it. Not only I can handle it, I know the beauty of it. I welcome it. I almost like energetically try to draw it out of you because I know how cathartic and healing it is. And that when we just feel the shit, it's it's released, it's out of us. And what you were describing, Sabina, the way you were describing it, I felt that, like that acceptance, that trust, that strength, that holding. And it makes sense to me that if you have that that energy, that attitude, that her emotions would shift so quickly. And I feel like that's what happens when people do sessions with me. They can move so quickly through stuff. And I think it is the power of the holding and the trust in it that it allows all of this to move out.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Sabina, because I was when you were sharing, I was sort of going, and then when Eliane, what you just said, it made me feel really, really emotional, and realizing that's what I've been holding tightly since Will has been here. So for 12 weeks now, I've been, so yeah, when you said, I think Sabina, you said, you know, sometimes I don't even need to say anything to hold the emotion. I 100% have experience of that with Otti. And I have experience of me not saying anything, but energetically saying, this isn't okay, and her picking up on that. So not even saying, this isn't okay, not even trying to distract her, not, you know, it's just like she can sense the wall in me that says, we can't do that. Like, no, this isn't okay. Even if I'm not saying it, because I'm so used to saying all the right things. And I think what's been happening, which is why I started welling up, I think what's been happening is I've been saying all the right things still, holding my arms open, but energetically I've been like, I can't handle the intensity and have a baby at the same time. How am I going to do that? Like, I feel scared. So again, it's just about looking at me and saying, okay, how can I handle this much chaos in my life? Like a screaming baby, you know, just, yeah. I mean, she doesn't scream that much, but you know, like when, yeah.
It's very full on with a baby. Yeah.
And so I think that's what I've been doing. I've been energetically saying, I mean, it's probably in like, in terms of how much, because I'm sorry, struggling with milk here, all right? I haven't been a bad mum the last 12 weeks to Otti, and it's been, yeah, I think what I'm trying to say is it's almost like, it's just like a tiny dot of me energetically not welcoming it that she's noticing. Like, it's that sensitive. She's that attuned to whether or not this stuff is welcome, whether or not she's welcome.
Yeah.
Like, am I welcome? I think is what she's always saying, and it's exactly what I remember feeling as a child too. Yeah, so I feel huge gratitude for you bringing that up, because I've realized that although rationally I know I don't need to be afraid of her intensity, and I know that the more I welcome the intensity, the quicker it goes and passes, and the beauty that comes from it as well, because there's always this connection that comes from it, and that connection is so deep with Otti, you know, because that's the beauty of being highly sensitive, is that we have this highly amazing way of connecting with people, you know. So yeah, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
the other bit, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about like what comes to my mind when you're talking now, Alice, is like I so feel like this fear, yeah, of this intensity too sometimes, because I think they also, because like with setting boundaries, so my daughter, like, so I've not really learned setting boundaries in a loving way. So I'm not really able to do that, but I'm learning with her a lot because she would not accept a boundary if not like set in the right
Yeah.
so you know what I mean. So I really
But
struggled with
again, it even has to be perfect energetically, right? It's not just
that.
the
Yeah,
word.
yeah,
That's that's the
absolutely.
intensity of it. Yeah.
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 And I was like, for us, it was a lot like with anger. Like anger like came with my daughter in my life with like yeah, intensity, let's say. And for me it's like the physical things, like she would hit and hurt me, and the way of finding or setting loving boundaries there, I'm still struggling with that, kind of keeping me safe because I made the experience of like intensity hurting me. So kind of like keeping me safe, and setting a loving boundary to kind of de-escalate the whole thing, because the more I would like push her away, the more she would like go towards me, of course, because she's looking for me in a sense. But yeah, this is still something we're kind of trying to figure out. I mean, it has improved a lot, or like it's not so relevant at the moment, but it was not so long ago. So I kind of feel, yeah, that's also a huge part, I guess, like with our highly sensitive children, how to kind of set boundaries or like keep us safe with being with their intensity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really it. It's like not being afraid of the intensity. I think is so important. And we just had a conversation, like a really cool conversation about that in my clean parenting program. I recorded a little audio. Maybe I should re-listen to it to see. And I just shared it with the one woman, but I wonder if it might be worth publishing it. Um, and it was about like how to hold space. And yeah, so part of it is not being afraid of the emotions. And part of it too is um, not feeling sorry for them. Like, I think that's another thing that I've really learned to do in my coaching is that I don't have, I have empathy for women when I work with them. I don't have sympathy. I'm not like, oh, poor you. How can you possibly handle that? Like, oh, this is so horrible. And I guess, I mean, there is a place for sympathy, but when you're feeling that way towards somebody, you're not empowering them. So I think that's something that can come up too when being with children who are highly sensitive. I mean, maybe not for the socks. I think, it's very unlikely that you'll feel like your poor broken child has to deal with not being able to find the socks. But it can be with, oh, this poor child is now having to deal with having a sibling and is being, pushed aside and can't sleep with me anymore. Like, it can be easy to think they can't handle it and to have that sympathy for you element in it. And I think that that can contribute to keeping them stuck in the emotion as opposed to supporting them and processing and being like, yeah, I know it's really hard. Like, it's really hard to have to share me with somebody. And I mean, I know you can handle that. And it's completely normal to have all those feelings and bring them on. And I'll help you be with them and process them. And you'll be okay. You'll be more than okay. Like, you can do this.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with strong emotions. And I wanted to say, Sabina, so it's not to like correct you, but when you talked about, I guess it kind of is, when you talked about trying to keep Lena, oh, hi, Lena. When you were talking about keeping her within her window of tolerance, to me, that's not like, not expressing an emotion that's inside of us is not staying within our window of tolerance.
Mm.
You know, and I think it might have just been a figure of speech, but yeah, it's not what will allow us to live in our window of tolerance is processing all of those emotions. Otherwise they get trapped and our window of tolerance gets smaller and smaller and more full of triggers.
I totally get what Sabina, I'm sure you do too though, what Sabina meant, you know, that whole, it's almost, for me, it's like, how can I stop her expressing so that I stay in my window of tolerance? Or no, I suppose that's, again, it's not the same, is it? But it's like, yeah, that's,
So I stay comfortable,
yeah.
I
or so I'm
posted,
not more uncomfortable. Oh, go ahead.
well, I recently just posted in the last module an incident that happened recently where Amina was babysat. So she was out all day. She came back home and she was so hyped up on like the whole day. And she wasn't like she couldn't calm down, like not she was yelling, crying. And it was really hard for me to accept that she was in that place. And I was like, okay, I have to bring her back down. And after a while, so brought her back down, calmed her down, and then for 2 hours after that, I was outside my window of tolerance. So it's like that helps a lot, Eliane, what you said, because it just she has to be out of her window of tolerance in order for it to expand. Like there's no way around it except through it for that to happen.
Right.
So it's uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable for me to see her like that. But it's like time and time again, I just have to stand back and put my hands back and be like, it's okay. Like, go through it.
Yeah. And I think that's the work, is to get to the point where it's not uncomfortable.
Right.
I think when
Right.
I'm talking about, when I talk about the energy that I bring to healing sessions, and of course, it's a lot easier to be like, okay, so I'm doing this and I'm actually paid for it, which is, you know, cool too. But I'm doing this with a, you know, 35-year-old woman for an hour, as opposed to doing this at random times with a, in your case, 2-year-old, and Sabina, 5-year-old, Alice, 4-year-old. I was thinking I should name the ages of your children because some people might wonder. Of yeah, so it's definitely, yeah, easier for me to be comfortable with those emotions. But I think the more comfortable you can become with those emotions, the more you can roll with them. And oftentimes, in order to get comfortable with your children's emotions, you need to get comfortable with your own emotions.
Right. Right.
Yeah, sorry, Willa's really talking.
She's
Well,
agreeing.
I agree. And Mum, you need to do it again. Because I remember really, really powerful, I mean, many sessions with you, but one really powerful session with Dana, who we both work with, and who's a really good friend of yours. And it was all about meeting. Yeah, it was. It was all about yeah. It was all about literally meeting. Like I wasn't visualizing, but it just happened. Like I was meeting my intense emotions and just being like, oh hey, okay, you're not gonna kill me. You're actually not gonna kill me. It's not gonna kill me. Okay. It was that sort of like, oh my God, you're not gonna kill me. Okay. I'm not gonna die if I feel this. And as it was after that that I was able to hear Otti's biggest stuff, because that's what brought me to need to work with Eliane, was suddenly having this 17-month-old, 16, 17, 18-month-old who had big emotions, and I was terrified of them. I was terrified of them because I was so terrified.
We literally can't hear you.
Because I was so terrified of my own emotions. Yeah. And that was the biggest turning point. I mean, it took a lot of work to then become okay with my emotions and to heal my nervous system around my emotions. And it still can. But yeah, so I think it is still triggered. And I think it's been triggered recently by having you. And now trying to work out what I do with. Maybe I'll just pause. You guys keep chatting. But yeah, how I can hold both and my own stuff. But I also just quickly wanted, now she's quiet. Well, not that I want you to be quiet, it's wonderful. But I also quickly wanted to jump in about what you said earlier on about the sympathy thing, because the thing that winds Ottie up more than someone trying to distract her, because if someone tries to distract her from her emotions, she'll just look at me and be like, what's going on? I need to cry. Like, why is this person trying to give me which
is amazing.
But what annoys her even more is someone saying, oh, you poor baby, oh, you poor thing, oh, that's really difficult, oh, that's awful, and just it feels really sickly to me. It's kind of this like, it's okay. Yes, it's not empowering. It's quite,
Instead of being like, oh, that's really upsetting that this is happening, right? Oh, you're feeling really frustrated. Oh, it's hard when this happens. Like that's
instead
kind of
it's
the general energy to me that I come at it with.
Yeah, it's the energy, and it's often the voice. The energy is portrayed in the voice quite often. I think that sort of, oh gosh, you poor thing. Oh no, that's really awful. It's like, whoa, no, it's okay to say. Like, I suppose what I would try and say is that really sucks. That's really hard. So that, but there's no sort of like, I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so that I think that's really spot on that you named that, because that really winds her up more, and it keeps her stuck in the thing that she's going through. Yeah. And what she really loves is hearing. There was one moment, maybe about 6 weeks into having Willoughby in our lives, and she had a huge release, and I finally was able to get into bed with her, because she was trying to stop me getting near to her, and eventually I climbed into bed with her, and I told her about how I used to feel as a child. And and I can't remember exactly the specific of what the emotion was that was going on, but I said, I used to feel this way, and sometimes I still feel X, Y, and Z, and it always passes. And and there was this way of kind of, she was able to hear the kind of message of, I know this is really painful, and I know that you'll get through it, and we'll be together, and we'll get through it, and we'll, and that it was, I think it was possibly one of the first times that I've talked to her in that way, and she really like responded really well to it. She was like, wow, mummy, can you tell me more? Like, tell me more about that, and how does that happen? It's like, I'm looking for tools, give me tools. I really, I want this support. And it was a real kind of key moment where I suddenly thought, oh, okay, I can talk to you about this in this way, and that's really helpful. Yeah.
I think that's the one that you wrote about in the Continuum Concept Forum that I ended up publishing, so I can link that.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah. And it was after I had set a really harsh limit. Well, what I was thinking would be too harsh or something. I can't quite remember the specifics because I was so in newborn brain. But
yeah. But yeah, I'll definitely link that article, because that really beautifully explained it.
Okay, cool.
So Sabina and Arij, I wonder if you have any, I don't know, questions for Alice, or thoughts, or I don't know, anything that you think would be pertinent to share with other parents who are wondering what the heck is going on with these really challenging children.
I think the one thing that I've learned and that I'm still learning to do is like to really let her be, like really let her be. And like before, I would often say, like, is it a phase, or is it like this intensity, is it gonna pass, or like, is it something I'm doing wrong, or but over time I'm like, just let her, like, let her be intense, let her feel whatever she needs to feel at whatever level she needs to feel. I'm not completely there, I'm working often at getting there. But like when I do get there and I stand back and I let her be and see who she is, it's just so beautiful. It's so nice to be like, I know she's 2, but it's like I love knowing her and seeing how she's operating in life. And it's so hard sometimes, but it's like I can be completely on one spectrum one day, and then on the complete other end of the spectrum another day.
And I mean, I feel like there's two things that I want to say to that are like opposite. But I don't think that I'm spirited, but I'm definitely a highly sensitive, highly sensitive, highly sensitive HSP. And one of the most amazing things that I've experienced is I can think of 2 people who in my life who have felt really could handle me. And it makes me emotional just naming it. Having somebody who could handle all of me, my
Mm.
bigness, my emotions when it's directed at them. I think, like, I talked about it in the speaking of human design, like the interview that I did of Kristen, how she's one of those people. She can handle me. And there's something that with her, I can relax in a way that I feel like I can't with anybody else. And I literally, I think I talked about it in that video, I become childlike with
Wow.
her because there's this feeling of like, oh my God, like I'm okay, like somebody can handle me. So I think maybe that's why I so resonated to that energy that you were describing, Sabina, when you said, like, just the energy that you had with her about, oh, you're angry. That's okay. Like, there's something for me that it's so healing to my nervous system that literally it's like I can relax with those people. I've
Mm.
never thought of it in this term of relating it to the highly sensitive children, but I think so developing this capacity to be able to handle their emotions, which probably a lot of it has to do with developing your own capacity, like making friends with your own emotions and your own intensity. Like
Mhm.
that's a huge gift for them. And I wouldn't be surprised actually if the more you develop that, the quicker the children's emotions will be able to flow through. Like
Mm.
there's a lot of people that I work with who talk about like having to sit with their children day in day out for like an hour as they process emotions, and I'm like, I wouldn't be able to handle that. But I wonder if the more they befriend their own emotions, the more they do their inner work, and the more comfortable they get, the more quickly their children's emotions will
Yes.
move through. And I think it's probably true because, like, one thing, just one reason why I always wanted to do this coaching training program is because I've been looking for somebody who does what I do for years so that I could heal. Because oftentimes I would be so jealous at how quickly my clients could do their healing work, whereas it's taken me so much longer. And I think part of it is because I've not had somebody holding me in the way that I can hold people. And and in the past few months, I've started doing sessions with people who were not even trained in doing it at all. I mean, Sabina's one of them, and then Natasha's the other one. But they knew how to hold space, and it's been amazing how much healing has taken place. And they have no training in it. All they're good at. It's massive, but all they're doing is really welcoming me and loving me and holding space, and magic can happen in that. Like so much can move through. So I could see that being almost like the number one thing to help those children would be that, like really developing the capacity to hold their emotions. Um,
And it is true, the first, when I started the program, I remember writing, I'm sitting with her for an hour-long tantrums and I'm exhausted, and you were like, we're gonna get through this. And now they're like 10 minutes sometime, if that. So they are getting less, and they're getting a lot less frequent and a lot less long. And she's able to tell me now, like, are you upset? Yes. Or, she's able to tell me yes and no. So you're right in that she had let it all out. She has more to let out. And now that I'm able to have more space for her and let her, be comfortable letting it all out, there's less maybe to process, or less to process.
and I think also it's more efficient.
Mhm.
I mean, I guess that's what I feel like, that the more powerful and welcoming to holding, I think the more efficient, like the more freely the energies can move through.
Right.
Alice, I'm sensing you wanting to jump in.
I'm just wondering whether Willa's been. So she hasn't been chatting this whole time, but I bet now she's going to start because I'm talking.
She wants to, engage with you.
Yes, she's engaging it up. Yeah, I I sort of feel that I have done so much work on being okay with my intensity. Being okay with my intensity, being okay with my emotions now and welcoming them. And therefore being okay with Ottie's as well. Oh dear. But but the practice that I keep needing to find, that I keep needing to do is, I wrote it in the chat just because I needed to remember it before I forgot, but it's more energetic. It's like a surrendering as a mother. Like and this word just keeps coming up for me again and again and again. Like I need to just surrender to it again. Just be like, okay, the intensity is okay. The intensity is welcome. The everything is welcome. And the more and I particularly with Ottie, I'm sure, it's my hair. I'm sure that will, stuff will come up with this with Willa too. But particularly with Ottie, I find that it's almost like when I resist it and I resist it and I resist it, and then when I surrender again to it's all welcome, energetically my embrace changes, like my body changes, my body language changes, and she's able to just melt into me. And it's that kind of, so like surrendering and melting felt like two really significant words for her. And I don't know if that's just her and how we interact, but there have been so many beautiful moments where I literally feel like she's just melted into me. And that melting, it's almost like alchemy, isn't it? When we melt into the deepest, darkest depths of our souls, and then from that something stronger emerges. And it's kind of but I put the brakes on. Like it's not her putting the brakes on, it's me, because I'm like, yeah, but I'm tired. Yeah, but we've got to get out, we've got to get to forest school, or I've got to go shopping, or I've got to cook organic home cooked food all the time. It's like these things are more important. And then I have to just be like, okay, she's gonna keep, it's gonna keep having to, I can't prioritize that stuff. I have to prioritize this part of mothering for this child. Like this is, I mean, for every child.
Well, and of yourself, to me, like that's another thing about being highly sensitive, is that oftentimes we have less capacity than other people, or we need a lot more recovery time or processing time. So like our window of tolerance is smaller. So it's like, as a mom, you have to prioritize living within your window of tolerance. Because if you're not living within your window of tolerance, you can't handle your child's. Like, I think that's what's been happening for you, Alice, since you've had Willa, is you had so many challenges that,
Yeah.
yes, of course, like you were living so outside your window of tolerance that, of course, you had no space to deal with all of Auti's emotions. So then your energy, like, because you were out of your window of tolerance, your energy tightened up. And then so it's just kind of this downward spiral. So I think it was like this big transition that you guys had, that it makes sense that there would be, that it would feel like some regression, but it's just the adaptation to
Right.
having a new baby when the needs are so high, and some of the challenges you've had with her of kind of like reestablishing a life that works for you, where you can be within your window of tolerance and have your needs met, so you're able to properly meet her needs.
And I think that's really key. Like, what does that mean? I was thinking about that today. I was thinking, what does it mean? Does it, what else, something, other stuff has got to give. And, what is that? Is that, I think for us at the moment, it's the getting out and seeing people and doing things, and doing all the things that I meant to do as a mother with a 5-year-old, or getting her to do these things. Like, she
All the
doesn't care
shoulds.
about that stuff at all. That's a should. It's what's important to prioritize for us is keep it. Yeah. I have to let go of stuff so that I'm within my window of tolerance, but I'm looking after the things that I know need to be a priority for us, and for me as well, not just her.
Yeah.
Because obviously life's a lot easier when we're both within our window of tolerance. Yeah.
So I feel like we could keep talking for a long time, but we should probably wrap it up to keep this reasonable length, which I think we've kind of passed already. One thing I do want to say, and that was my reason for wanting to host this call, is that I did not have a highly sensitive, spirited HSP. And I just really want to recognize it's really, really challenging, and like oftentimes moms will talk to me and say, like, I don't know what you do. Like, what did you do when this happened? And I was like, this didn't happen to me. Like, I didn't have to deal with this. So I just want to recognize that it's really challenging. However, we decide this, like if we choose our children or our children choose us to be in our families, like people who have those highly sensitive, spirited HSP, it's like you have just been handed like a really high challenge. So I just want to recognize that, so that that if you're messing up, and if, I don't know, you hear me talk about not yelling at my children and you think, oh, I'm a failure because I yell at my children. Yes, but also the bar was a lot lower for me because I didn't have to deal. Like, I didn't, I wasn't required to parent at the level that you three and the other parents who have those highly sensitive, spirited HSPs. I feel like we've just coined a new term, that you're required to. So I think just recognizing that, and like giving yourself a lot of graciousness in, yes, it might take a while before you can get to this place of feeling like you can really handle your children and you have this harmony with them, and that it's probably more likely that you will regularly lose it with them or not be able to be 100% on point and all of that. So I think that's really, really important. And it's probably even more important for you parents to have support and to have like-minded people and to, chat with each other. And because there's nothing like talking to people who understand us. I think there's nothing as validating as somebody who just like, it's like, I get it. I've walked through your shoes, or I'm also walking through your shoes. And then, yes, getting professional support if you need it. I mean, I know not everybody can afford it, but in any way that you can, I'm always working at finding like affordable ways for people to receive healing help. And so, yeah, I think it's just really important to have that support.
I feel like I want to add one more thing very
Yeah, no,
quickly.
absolutely. I was gonna actually I was gonna ask each of you if there was anything that you felt you wanted to add or
It's
before
kind of
we wrap it up.
just what you've been saying, but also extending it to sort of, I feel like it would, in my old, before the work that I've done in the last 4 years, if I was sitting here now reflecting on Otti as a baby and Willa as a baby, it would be really easy for me to judge myself and say, if I had been better, more healed, less anxious as a mum with Otti, then she probably wouldn't have the, you know, issues that she has today. I don't like the word issues because I don't see them as issues, but you know what I mean.
Right.
I think quite a and yet I can see now with the benefit of hindsight that it had to be that way. Like it's part of who she is to teach, to kind of, like we're talking about, you know, these children are angels that come to help us, and like that's, I can't, yeah, like that's what she needed as well, was me as a mum, and it's what I needed was her as my daughter. And yeah, because I think I sometimes worry that, well, you know, occasionally I might think, oh, you know, how much anxiety did she pick up from me? Oh, my sweetheart. I don't know if I'm making sense. You might be able to say it more eloquently, but I think I'm trying to say,
I think you're more eloquent than you think you are.
she's also with Willow, who's fighting me. Because she wants to go to sleep because it's bedtime, which I've never experienced before with a child. I'm going to mute myself now.
Arij and Sabina, I wonder if you have any last thoughts.
I feel really good after this call. Actually, it really does help to talk to moms who understand where, like, I'm surrounded by a lot of non-HSP, non-highly intense, so it's very comforting to have this conversation. And I love what you said, Alice. Like, how many times have I had this thought of, like, maybe if I wasn't so intense, or maybe if I didn't have so much crap to clean up, then Amina wouldn't be like this. Or so it's really nice the way you put it. And like, if I can, I'm gonna chew on that a lot more.
Actually, it made me wonder too, like, because I've had the same thought about Gabby, my
Yeah.
highly sensitive, of thinking, oh, if I hadn't been so depressed when I had her, maybe she wouldn't have cried so much, and maybe, you know, she wouldn't have had some of the challenges that she did. But I also feel like she came to wake me up. So
Yeah.
I was very happy with my life before she was born. I was very much settling in the life that I had. And I always felt like she came to be like, Mom, wake up. You're about more than this.
Mhm.
And kind of turned everything upside down for me. But yeah, so maybe I didn't do anything wrong with her. Maybe
Mhm.
I didn't mess her up.
Mhm. And it's through the program that it's like I can see it, you know. It's like I had to clean up my stuff to be able to see it. And there's still so much more being shown in the process. But
Yeah.
it's
It never ends.
no, it never ends. So,
Gabby's still teaching me, teaching all of us actually. Me, her sisters, her dad. Like, even though she's the youngest, I feel like she's the teacher of the family.
mm, mm,
Yeah, like, and like she's able to teach her dad, he's in his 70s. She's able to teach her dad stuff that her sisters and I could never teach him. he's changing because of his youngest daughter.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Mm.
Yeah, so I wanted to thank you all for having me in this room. I think it's so healing to meet other women that are also so willing to see and understand and meet and be curious about this intensity and about the gift that every single kid and person brings to the world, and especially when it gets a little more uncomfortable than we thought it would be. So what I also, when you were talking, Eliane, I think I, as a kid, experienced a lot of anger because I felt so misunderstood. And I think our kids also, like in this world, in our culture, encountered that misunderstanding a lot, that they got like put in a very wrong, yeah, you know what I mean. So I think it's so important to truly see where they're coming from and meet them where they are and meet them with love and with good intentions, and to know that they are too. So yeah, I think that's so important, and it motivates me so much to have this or engage in this kind of conversation, to do that, right? Because like talking about it with other people gives me different perspectives and putting light on spots that I have not yet seen. So yeah, thank you for that.
Mm. Well, I am so grateful to all three of you for showing up and for this really awesome conversation, and for this is what I like to do, is do videos with, my favorite people. That's totally my way of getting information out. Yeah, especially with some of my absolute favorite people in the whole wide world, which all three of you are. Um, And yeah, so I just wanted to say, for anybody listening to this, if you want to have more of these conversations, so, Sabina and Arij and Alice, and actually another Alice who actually probably should have been on this call too, um, who also has a highly sensitive spirited HSPs, they're all in my tribe Facebook group. So if you want to be part of my community, yeah, if you buy my Quick Start program, which is currently around $200, yeah, you get access to that community, to that Facebook group, and to 4 annual group calls with me. And those are some of the conversations that we have in these calls. So yeah, that's one way that you can be connected to all of us and have access to all of us, and for support in parenting those really unique beings in a way that will honor their spirits and allow them to be, yeah, really who they're meant to be, without, well, fucking them up, basically. Excuse my language, but that's kind of the bottom line. Like, it's harder not to fuck up those children because they are so intense, so much, and it's but it's very possible.
Mhm.
And because they trigger so much in us as well. But I'm going to leave it there. But just, yeah.
Yeah, that too. Absolutely. All righty. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, if you enjoyed this
Thank you, guys.
video, you can sign up for the for our channel, because we're going to be doing a lot more of these types of conversations on topics of interests with my favorite people, because that's what I like to do. All righty. Well, thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.